It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we're going to be covering the Clotted Cream update and how he's fitting into some specific teams. Now, I'm only going to, in this video, be covering the T-Night team because it's doing a very good job. I am very happy with the update and how the overall scale is. You can tell that it's not game-breaking because Clotted Cream is not dominating the arena in the sense that Caramel Arrow was when Caramel Arrow first came out, but it is definitely a very impressive setup as to how the overall changes were made. And I'll show you, there's not going to be a lot of visual changes, so you're going to see a lot of the same things there. And then as far as the skills, they're exactly the same as they were listed in the updates text, so nothing else is going to be different. The main takeaway that's important is that the damage resistance over 8 seconds is 17.5%, and that's amazing. Here's why that's really actually amazing. The toppings that I specifically have set up on Clotted Cream is a full almond set. From the last time that I ran Clotted Cream, there was only one topping that I changed out, and that was this bottom corner one. Originally, I had 3% damage resist, 1.6% attack, and like debuff resist. So now I've upgraded it to a 4.5 damage resist, 2.9% attack, and a 1.2% cooldown. That is because the three stats that I am focusing on for Clotted Cream to get the most out of Clotted Cream is damage resistance, cooldown, and attack power. The main reason is the critical damage can only apply to certain points of Clotted Cream skills, so I don't want to invest into a critical build on Clotted Cream if the skill cannot fully take advantage of it. As in, that's just kind of leaving some power on the table that attack power can kind of take over. The other thing is, even though that 17% damage resistance is there, and it is amazing, I still want to ensure that Clotted Cream survives because the utility of his skill is really the main benefactor of why he's so helpful in this team, and so that's the whole reason I'm running almond setups for him. So, with that out of the way, I'll just get through the regular toppings. T-Night, almonds for defensive setup. Wildberry, almonds for defensive setup. My cacao, I am probably still never changing off of apple toppings for cacao because I love how much massive amount of damage he can put out. And then Eclair, an attack build because he gets kind of better when you set him up with damage resistance. However, because it's a T-Night team, I don't necessarily have a heavy focus on damage resistance on certain characters because it's okay if they perish. T-Night will do what he needs to do. And I'm going to show you. I'm actually so confident with this team because it's pulled me up about 100 trophies just this morning, is just taking it in PvP. I'm not going to battle my friend list. I'm not going to battle the guild list. I'm just going to show you how it's working through the actual Masters 2 Pure Vanilla arena. So this is Pure Vanilla server, Master 2, at almost 3,000 trophies. And we're just going to show you how it works. Now, there are two teams that are specifically countering this setup, and you can kind of work around that. So this team is a quad 4. It should be at least Wildberry, Cacao, Madeline, potentially, and Caramel Arrow and Pomegranate. The thing is, they do have a level 11 speed treasure, and their power is about 200,000 less. So I'm okay to run this team against them, but if I felt that I did need to change, the only change I would make would be from Eclair to Caramel Arrow. That'd be the only adjustment, and that's because against the quad 4, you basically also want to run a quad 4. The only other team that is being kind of a counter is the Sorbet tank teams. However, if they don't run Pumpkin Pie, or if they don't have a strong front tank like Cacao or Wildberry, I'm actually able to still beat them. So, there is specific counters, but this team's doing really good. It's doing very, very good. So we're going to run this in. They are running Madeline, so we're probably going to have a tough time here just because of that. However, like I said, their power level was pretty low for what team they are running, so their toppings are not nearly enough for us to be worried about. And so as you can see, we just absolutely obliterated their team. We did end up using a feather activation, but that's okay. Overall good damage from everybody. Overall good damage. If their power level had been about 750,000 with that team, then it would have been more optimized to the traditional quad 4 that you might see in the arena. Here, this is likely to be a sorbet tank team. So if they have pumpkin pie and they have sorbet, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to beat this team. I'm going to show you by just battling it. I don't mind because I want you to see. It's very likely we will not win if it's a sorbet team. Thankfully, it is not, though, so I actually think we have great chances here. They are actually running their own Clotted and a Sea Fairy for some really good AoE damage, but that doesn't really bother me because T-Knight will survive, and he will just ravage through if they do AoE our team down. So I'm okay with that. If it was a sorbet team, it would have been a much different scenario because T-Knight would be taken down. And that's really the weakness in the T-Knight team, is that if T-Knight goes, then you really have to depend on the rest of your team doing the remainder of the work. But as you can see, we're just pile driving through now. Their heals are pretty impressive, of course. Clotted does get to pause our T-Knight, though, so that's very beneficial in their help. It's a close one, but we don't get through. So that's a good example, though. So this is something new I haven't seen yet. Clotted was able to suspend and push back the T-Knight team. So a Clotted Sea Fairy combo with Wildberry, that might be a good counter to the T-Knight team. Please do keep that in mind, because you may start seeing some of these teams come into the fold and pushing through. So that's a team I'll probably end up running too, and I definitely like that. But we're still going to run through. This time they don't have a Wildberry. Highly likely to be a sorbet team. It is. So let's see if we can end up taking this win. It's going to be a low chance, but we do have a chance. And the reason is Clotted is going to either push Cacao or Pumpkin Pie's Pom Pom back to the midline, which will give our people a chance to come through and battle out the middle row. And that's really the high point of where this has the shine, is that it can battle against the middle row. As you can see here, it just really wasn't enough, though. So just more proof that this is a counter team. So if you do start seeing my T-Knight team, if you start seeing the middle fronts of Sea Fairy and Clotted as well, sorbet team is going to be a heavy counter. But you can see Clotted did an amazing amount of damage here, and that's because Pom Pom and the sheep on the field, more targets for the AoE to hit, more damage for Clotted to push out. So Clotted is definitely doing a much higher amount of damage than he was originally, and so he is quite impressive. Now, let's go ahead and start taking some wins, and we'll just skip the battles that we know that we should lose. So that way you can see where the team is shining. Because I wanted to show you at least the counters, that way you can be like, well, is it the perfect team? Really, is it? No, it's not. There's no perfect team. There is always counters to each team, and I wanted to show you guys that. So now we're moving into the teams that we should be able to beat. And all that damage resistance is why Clotted survived above Wildberry, Cacao, and Eclair. And right there, we're just pushing back, taking them down. And I'll show you the stats real quick at the end so you can see. Worked out great. Clotted was the biggest damage dealer on our side. So if we move to this one, they're going to have lower treasures. There's absolutely no reason we shouldn't be able to beat this team. All right. Yeah, absolutely just shredding through them. And so this is just one of the very many variations that you can put together. But either way, this is a much more stable build of Clotted. I definitely like the adjustments that they've made. I'm happy and impressed so far. It, of course, can be taken to a much bigger tier because if I can get my toppings to a point where they're completely optimized, we're probably going to lose this match. If I can get my toppings to a point where they're optimized, then we should be able to create some pretty insanely powerful teams. So toppings, as always, are going to be a huge benefactor and reason as to why you might be able to win a match. But this team synergy is pretty awesome because I love, especially against single tank teams, I love when Clotted can push them back. so that my team can run through and battle out the mid row. But I hope this video was helpful for you. If you want to leave in the comments your opinions or your teams that you're specifically running, maybe you have a special build that nobody's looked at yet, I'd love to hear the feedback of it, and I'd love to hear why it's working for you. And let me know if you have specific team requests, because I always am willing to look into them and see what is viable and what can be done. Thank you so much for coming by and watching, and you guys have a wonderful day.